a lot of interesting storylines here for the Pack, and you heard Nelson, who was off the pup now, and Eddie Lacy shaved off a few pounds. Rodgers, a little bit of a lackluster year by his standards, but, you know, we kind of led with this. Rodgers ripped the NFL, ripped Goodell, and we're still waiting on Matthews and Peppers, some resolution there. It's a big story, and there's a man who's around the team daily. He knows the lay of the land well. His name is Bill Michaels. Got a popular show out there in Wisconsin, simulcast. And he is in the know, and Bill's with us here on Tiki Tierney. Bill, how you feeling today, bud? What's happening?
Doing great. I'm at a golf tournament where we all should be at this point in time, but a lot of Packers talk. You're absolutely right about everything from the Al Jazeera report to Jordy Nelson coming off the pup list.
No doubt, man. What is your sense? I mean, I can't imagine that Clay Matthews and Peppers are barraged with questions from the local media on a daily basis. But when they are asked, what is their response? And in your gut, what do you think they do about this?
You know, I've been asked that a lot over the last 24 hours. What they say publicly is once the story comes out, they'll be proven innocent and there's nothing to worry about. That's what they've said publicly, and then after that, they really don't have a comment on it. The fact that the NFLPA has said it's up to each individual player at this point, because remember, Clay Matthews wanted to talk to the NFL, and it was the NFLPA that said, no, you're not going to, don't cross the line. So right now, my assumption is going to be that Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers are eventually going to talk, because they don't want to be suspended. I mean, as this thing draws out, you can go a couple of weeks into the season before your appeal is even heard, and you'd miss a couple of games. They don't want that to happen. This is a team that believes they're on their way to a championship this year, and all the pieces are in the right place. So I get a sense that they're going to talk. But what I would probably say may change their minds is if there's a strong feeling inside that locker room that they shouldn't. If your guys have your back, you will. If your guys don't have your back and you would upset the apple cart, so to speak, they probably won't talk. But my assumption is that they're going to talk, and I think this is all going to blow over here in the next week or so.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting dynamic between players and the NFLPA and what the players' goals are and what the NFLPA's goals are. You talk about them being of the mindset of getting back to and winning another championship. A lot of that will depend on Jordy Nelson, who just cleared off the PUP list. What's the expectation for him in his early starts as a Packer now in camp? Not necessarily in the games, but in camp right now.
Well, as a fan versus a realist, I think they're drastically different. The fans think he's going to come back and be Jordy, and everything's going to begin to roll, and all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers will be golden again, and, they're doing dances and lighting torches here in Packerville. Realistically, I think you take it easy with him. Maybe you get him acclimated, probably the last preseason game, and let him get into a little bit of a rhythm. But I'm just hoping Jordy Nelson comes back and gives you a couple of opportunities for some back shoulder throws, maybe gets it downfield a couple of times. But really what you're looking for is for that presence to take the pressure off of guys like Jared Cook, the newly acquired tight end, Randall Cobb, who clearly struggled last year when he was the number one, Devontae Adams, who had drops last year, and even Eddie Lacy, a rejuvenated, slimmed-down version of Eddie Lacy. Can he be better, all because Jordy Nelson's presence on the field? You have four legitimate weapons there for Aaron Rodgers now to throw to, so who is the defense going to double? Who is the defense going to concentrate on? And that's going to open up other guys in the field, and that's what you're hoping for realistically.
You know, Bill, I don't know if this is a fair assessment. Obviously, doing a national show, we parachute in on all the teams, and it's not like we watch every single snap of every game. It's impossible to do that. We've had Randall on the show quite a bit, and we like him a lot. And we actually thought, I thought there was a chance he was going to go to the Raiders last year as a free agent. I was a little surprised he went back to Green Bay. I was happy that he did because he's a Packer. But my assessment of Randall last year without Jordy Nelson is that when he was expected to be the man, he's not quite built that way to be the man. Is that off base, or did he have a better season than I'm giving him credit for?
Well, I think part of it is you're absolutely right. The second part of it is, don't forget, early on in the season he had that separated AC joint, and he played with that all season long, and he said it was extremely painful. So when you can't move that arm and you can't raise that arm up, it's very hard to kind of get into those hand checks at the line of scrimmage and shove off of a guy if you're only one-handed. So I think that also hampered him. But to say that he was expected to be the number one and wasn't, that's a very fair assessment. James Jones became your number one, and that's a guy that was looking for a job at the point. So what does that tell you about your wide receiving core? Devontae Adams was supposed to step up, but he had a lot of drops and lost the trust of Aaron Rodgers. And just as he started to emerge, Ty Montgomery, the wide receiver they drafted, He ended up coming up with a severe ankle injury that required surgery in the offseason, and he wasn't able to perform. So you were looking for guys like Jeff Janis and Jared Abbrederis, who had concussion issues, to come off the bench and really be viable. And you didn't have a tight end position that was going to stretch the field in any way, shape, or form. And Richard Rodgers didn't have any yards after the catch. They really struggled. And then you add and compound the fact that they didn't have to concentrate on Eddie Lacy. He clearly lost his step. He was way too heavy in that season last year. And all they had to do was double-team Randall Cobb in the slot. Everything else fell into place for any opponent they faced.
I want to go to Bill Michaels with us here on Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio. Bill, popular show out in Wisconsin. We're doing a little state of the Packers here. Next hour, we'll do the Pats. Devin McCloud is going to join us, their outstanding safety. You know, you mentioned Davante Adams, and I know he dropped the ball quite a bit. I have heard this from a few sources. You tell me if I'm off base, that he doesn't necessarily take football seriously enough, that he's got to become a more diligent pro and kind of clean some stuff up. Is that off base?
It may be a little more severe than it sounds, or it may sound a little more severe than it is, but there has been the times in camp where Aaron Rodgers gets a little boisterous and says, "Get your blanking head in the game." So, at times, let's be honest, guys. You guys know this. If you're not concentrating on the football coming into your hands and you're just kind of out there, lackadaisically doing things, you're not going to hang on to the football in the NFL. It just isn't going to happen. And that's what he ran into last year. When he got his head straight, when James Jones got into him a little bit, because remember, James Jones had the same problem going into this year. They won the Super Bowl, and it wasn't until he talked to his old high school coach and went back to him where his coach said, "Hey, this is what you got to do, and if not, get the hell out of the game." Then James Jones became a much better receiver. He got into Davante Adams' rear end a little bit, and suddenly the drops diminished towards the end of the season when they needed him the most. So we'll wait and see. It's been an interesting camp. He's had a couple of tremendous catches when he's been in coverage, where he's had to go up and get it at the apex and look athletic and do it. And then he gets a couple where he's wide open down the middle of the field. He's beating the coverage, and it's off his fingertips, and he drops the football. So, will the real Davante Adams please show up?
Yeah, and we hope that the real Aaron Rodgers shows up as well, Bill. For the first time, I think really since he's become a starter, Aaron Rodgers fell under some criticism. His completion percentage was way down, almost 60% as compared to his career average of 65. It felt like his ability to lead the team was somewhat amiss. Is there worry about Aaron Rodgers, or is this just an anomaly of a season last year? And can we expect the old Aaron Rodgers to be back in 2016?
It's a two-part answer, and you know as well as I do that if you have stuff going on inside a locker room, that can affect your ability to concentrate and or play on the field. And it seemed like when Mike McCarthy was going out of his way, as he said, to invent adjectives to describe how great Aaron Rodgers was, because the play calling went from Mike McCarthy to Tom Clements back to Mike McCarthy, and that didn't sit well with Aaron Rodgers, he started sniping back and forth in the media with his head coach. And then he had some comments regarding some of the guys around him. And he's been questioned before. Remember Donald Driver? You had also Jermichael Finley before he left. They questioned his leadership ability. So last year there were times when he extended drives and extended plays because he's just that darn good. And then there were other problems where he kind of got in his own way. He didn't trust the guys around him, and the guys got frustrated with him. I think this year what you're counting on, guys, is just kind of hitting the reset button, getting everything right, getting in a feel again. But where it's really going to come to pass is when things start to go wrong, when you start to find out the character of players and the leadership of guys around you. When things go wrong, how do they handle that this year? And if things go south on them like they did last year, well, then you can say, okay, it's not just an apparition and it's not just as easy as hitting a reset button. But if they fight through it, and they sustain and they continue to have a winning season, then I think last year's just kind of an apparition. It goes in the past and it's no big deal.
That's a good description. Bill, we got about 20 seconds here. I think most of us expect this to be a two-team race in the NFC North. Packers, Vikes, flip that in any order you want. Lions, Bears, do either of those teams factor in or no?
I think the Bears do, only for the fact that it's such a heated rivalry. And the Bears, Lions, everybody came into Lambeau Field and beat the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field last year. So I think you got to look over your shoulder. I really like what Pace and Fox are doing down in Chicago. I don't think they're quite there yet, but that's a team that's on to come. And if Teddy Bridgewater takes that next step, I agree with you, it's going to be a dogfight in the North.
Bill, really good stuff, man. I know we'll be chatting during the season. Thanks a lot for a few minutes, man.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys.
Okay, there he is. Bill Michaels out in Wisconsin.